is. It costs $90 to $120 million a year, but I have a way to pay for it. Get rid of George Bush's tax cuts. Yeah! With our responsibility to future generations. Yeah. This issue of global warming is a crisis facing America, facing the world. And America needs to lead. We are the worst polluter on the planet. Yeah. We ought to be capping carbon emissions in America. Amen. That cap ought to be brought down every single year. We ought to reduce our carbon emissions by at least 80%. And we ought to make the polluters pay. Yeah. That money should be invested in wind, solar, cellulose-based biofuels. Let me draw one other distinction. Unlike Senator Clinton and Senator Obama, I am dead against building any more nuclear power plants. In fact, I think we ought to have a moratorium on the building of any more coal-fired power plants. And then finally, wouldn't it be a great thing to have a president of the United States who actually asks Americans to be patriotic about something other than war? We need a president in the proud tradition of John Kennedy, who said in his inauguration, "Ask not what your country can do for you." We need a president who calls on Americans to sacrifice, who says we are in this together. We have to conserve in our homes, in our workplaces. We have to drive different kinds of vehicles. If we're going to meet our moral responsibility to our children and our grandchildren. And when are we going to have a president who says we've had enough of NAFTA and CAFTA? We need a president who asks, is this trade proposal good for working middle-class families? Not is it good for the profits of big corporations. And by the way, when I'm president, we're going to close these tax loopholes to give tax breaks to American companies. And what are we going to do to lift up America's low-income families? This is a huge moral issue facing this country. 37 million Americans who wake up in poverty every day. Dr. Martin Luther King, one of the last things he did was his Poor People's Campaign. It was the heart and soul of what he believed. I was in March, Mississippi just a few months ago on a poverty campaign, poverty tour myself, and went to some of the places that Dr. King had been, including with some of the people who had been there. And in many ways, some things had not changed. We still have work to do in America. We do. And this is a moral issue facing America and the rest of the world. Then what do we need to do? The Congress finally raised the minimum wage. It's going to $7.25 an hour. It's great. It's not enough. It's going to $9.50 an hour. The greatest anti-poverty movement in American history is the organized labor movement. And we've got to change the law to make it easier. It's very simple. If you can join the Republican Party by signing your name to a card, any worker in America ought to be able to join the union by doing that. For the union to go out on strike and walk that picket line, when I'm president, nobody will walk through that picket line and take their jobs away from them. We need a national, predatory, payday lending law. We need to do something about the abusive practices of credit card companies. The best I can tell, they'll give a credit card to a cat. We have a responsibility to regulate their behavior. We need to make it easier for kids to go to college. Yes. Young people are faced with such enormous challenges, paying for college, and then if they're able to go, they come out with this crushing burden of debt. So many of our young people are faced with it. My idea is called College for Everyone, where we say to every young person in America, if you're willing to work 10 hours a week when you're in college, America pays your tuition and books at a state university. by just getting rid of the big banks as the intermediaries between the government and the student loan system. And here's a radical idea. How about having a President of the United States that actually believes in the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights?
Hell yeah!
When I'm sworn in as President, I will close Guantanamo, which is a national... There will be no more rendition, no more secret prisons. There will be no more illegal spying on the American people. And there will be no more debate in America about what kind of torture is permissible. America's ability to lead in the world again. See, where America is once again the light, where we're the example of what's possible, where the rest of the world looks to the United States of America and says, America, that's who we want to be like.